Does atheism take more faith? I've often heard from many people, all of them being theists, that atheism or disbelieving in God takes more faith, or even worse, so-called believing in science takes more faith. This argument, I can only assume, comes up to bring down atheists and even science down to their level. So today I figured I'd answer this question today. Does atheism take more faith? Whatever that means. Now, the title or the question isn't really accurate because atheism isn't a belief system or something like that. So-called disbelieving in God as, atheism with an ism, isn't really fair. So the better title might be, does it take more faith to be an atheist? Although that still doesn't make sense, and I'll explain later. Atheism is just a term, a title one might call themselves if they disbelieve in God, or much rather lack a belief in God. You see, many people misunderstand or misinterpret atheism, either deliberately or not. Atheism is not a belief system, it's the lack of one. I heard a terrible quote once. It goes something like this. When people don't believe in God, when men don't believe in God, they believe in anything, not nothing. This simply isn't true. Although I don't believe I can speak for all atheists here, atheism is simply the rejection of the proposition that there is a God. I don't believe that there is no God, I simply don't believe in God. It's not, an active position like theism. Atheism isn't really on the same plane as theism. I'm not necessarily saying one is superior than the other or one is inferior than the other, but what I mean is that it's not a fair comparison due to the differing natures of both. So, since I mentioned the proposition of God, I think it's pretty obvious that the burden of proof lies with theists as they make the claim, and I simply reject the proposition. Some may say that the burden of proof lies with atheists as they propose that there is no God, and theists simply reject the proposition. But this simply isn't correct. I and many don't propose that there is no God, we simply don't believe in God as the proposition states. But now we're talking about faith, let's define faith. The dictionary defines faith as to put complete trust into something, to have strong convictions about something. So, knowing this, the question is, do you have a stronger conviction or trust if you disbelieve or reject the proposition of the existence of God? Now, hearing this, it sounds like a dumb question. I mean, what are you even believing? And of course, I just expanded upon the definition of an atheist here. So, let me rephrase the question. Do you have stronger faith or does it take more faith to be an atheist? That's basically the question translated over. And of course, it doesn't make sense. Now, the quick answer to this is nothing. What are you believing? Nothing. Atheists are called faithless for a reason. I've heard a lot of people say it takes more faith to be an atheist, likely because of Pascal's wager or something. Although it doesn't really make much sense. I made a video about Pascal's wager, and I will make a video on as to why faith isn't a virtue or shouldn't be looked at as one. But since we have a little more time, let's tackle science. I have heard it takes more faith to believe in science or evolution or the Big Bang than to believe in God. I've made a few videos on supposed evidences for God, and to make it short, there isn't much compelling evidences for the existence of one, let alone the Christian God or whoever God you may believe in. The difference with science and religion is that science goes by evidence and religion emphasizes faith without evidence. What we know with science is constantly changing, and if we don't know anything, we go to work finding out instead of pointing or invoking God as an answer. Religious people may brag about how they have an answer about something, whereas science may not for now. But just because you have an answer, it doesn't mean it's the right one or it's always the right one. We used to do the same many times before. Before, we used to believe that everything revolved around the earth or that the earth is flat because, well, that's what people believed. But of course, now we know that the earth revolves around the sun and is not flat. Am I saying that religion isn't progressive or it can't be? Well, of course not, but because of faith, it makes them, I guess, resistant to change by its nature. There are people who will defend creationism simply because it was written with the intent to be literal. Let me explain this. Theists often have faith that God was responsible for the creation of the universe and the earth. They have faith in that. They have faith that that God is the answer. And because of this, changing their minds is incredibly hard, which I commend and get annoyed at the same time. Faith is not really encouraged in science. If every scientist had faith in their own theories to be correct without testing or peer review or criticism like religion, then we wouldn't move forward. Even when creating theories, they aren't based on a holy book, but from evidences collected from the natural world. Now, I don't mean to synonymize atheism with science here, by the way. Many reputable scientists believe in God or a God. The difference is they don't let their religion or belief hold back their curiosity to learn or close their incredibly brilliant minds. Oh, and also a lot of times, and I would highly recommend this, you don't make reality adjust to religion, but you make your religion adjust to reality. So, no, rejecting the proposition of a God or believing that evolution is the origin of the diversity of life doesn't take more faith. Faith by its nature doesn't require much evidence, but the burden of proof will always remain with them since they have the proposition. But I simply reject this proposition due to my standard of evidence being higher. But anyways, that's all I have to say. My next video will probably be about evidences for God or arguments for God rather. So stay tuned to that for my 10 subscribers. If this video ever becomes a banger, then that's cool, I guess. But anyways, I have been the Atheist, and remember to live by what you see.